In the last video, you learned how to create a custom event type in a custom MXML component and dispatch it on a button click. You then handled it in the main application to make a second component visible. In this video, you will learn how to pass data with the dispatched event by extending the flash.events.event class. First, you will learn why extending the event class is necessary to avoid direct binding of data between components. You will also learn how to clone the subclass you create so that you can take advantage of the built-in event propagation functionality in the Flex framework. Once that data is dispatched in the event object of one custom component, you will handle it in the main application and use it in a second component. In the last exercise, you dispatched an event from the Choose Custom Component instance and handled it in the main application to make the Preview Component instance visible. In this video, you will learn how to package the data stored about the selected employee and pass it to the Preview Custom Component in the Dispatch Event object. To accomplish this, you must do more than just create, instantiate, and dispatch an event. To pass data with the event, you must extend the event type by creating your own ActionScript class to manage the additional data. You may be thinking, why should I go through the trouble of creating an ActionScript class when I can simply bind to the data from one component to the other? This illustration shows the same Choose and Preview custom components. If the Choose component has an instance name of ChooseEmployee, and the drop-down list control within it has an instance name of employee list, then you can see that it would be easy to simply bind directly to ChooseEmployee.EmployeeList.SelectedItem to grab the information about the selected employee for display in the Preview component. Many developers will fall into this trap, but it's architecturally considered a bad practice. One of the reasons you create custom components in the first place is so that you can keep the code and logic separate between them. If you then start reaching in and out of components to directly access elements inside of them, then you have made your code more fragile. Consider the case that you have two different developers creating these two custom components. If Joe has written code to directly bind the content of the Preview component to Mark's Choose component, and Mark suddenly decides to rename that component, then Joe now has a broken component. A much cleaner approach to communicating between components is to loosely couple them. This is based on the concept that each component is a black box to any other component and its inner workings are hidden. The only way information is passed into a loosely coupled component is through public properties or arguments. The only way that information is passed out is by dispatching a custom event which is listened for and handled by the application. Building components in this way enables better reuse and maintenance of the code and is considered a best practice. To pass data with your event object, you start with the same steps that you learned in the last video. First, you define the event type. Then you handle a user or system event that triggers the custom event. In the handler, you instantiate the event and then dispatch it to the main application which handles the event. In the last video, the application displayed the Employee of the Month Preview component. In this video, you will attach data to the event that is dispatched to the main application so that the second custom component can use the data. To create an event object that can carry data, you must create a custom event class by extending the flash.events.event class. The reason we need to create a custom event class is that the flash.events.event base class does not support adding properties to the event object. The event that you created in the last exercise cannot pass custom data and simply notified the application that an event occurred. In this video, I will extend the event class to create my own custom event class that will accept the employee data as a custom property. You learned how to create ActionScript classes in an earlier video. To create a custom event class, you will first create a subclass that extends the event class and then add properties to the subclass. These properties will become part of the event object. The class's constructor invokes the super method of the event class because you want to access all the functionality of the event class and simply add a few custom data objects to it. Lastly, if you are creating a class that needs to bubble, then you will override the clone method of the event class to create a duplicate of the event object for bubbling. You learned about bubbling in an earlier video. Here's the project and main application file for this video. I will use Flash Builder to help me create the new custom event class, but first I want to create a directory to store that class. Within the Package Explorer, I am right-clicking on the source folder and selecting New Folder. I'm creating a new folder named Events and clicking Finish. Next, I'm right-clicking on the Events folder and selecting New ActionScript Class. I am naming the class Show Preview. Remember that the classes are by convention named with an initial capital letter. Don't confuse this class with the Show Preview lowercase s event type defined in the metadata tag block of the Choose Custom component. Next, I am clicking on the Browse button next to the Superclass field and typing Event to select the event class in the Flash.Events package. My new ActionScript class will be in the Events package and will be a public class named Show Preview that extends the Flash.Events.Event class. I am leaving the Generate constructor from Superclass checkbox selected and then clicking Finish. The Show Preview.as file opens in the editor view. You can see that the class definition uses the extends keyword to extend the event class. It also contains a constructor with the same name as the class and the AS file. The class constructor should do at least 4 things. First, it should accept an argument for the event type. This is required by the parent event class. It should also accept arguments for the data you want to pass in. Next, it should call the super method to initialize the functionality of the parent event class for this subclass. Lastly, it should assign the data passed in via the arguments to the associated class properties. Here is the Show Preview ActionScript class again. Note that the constructor does define the type as the first argument. Remember that the type argument of the event class references the type of event that you are dispatching. For instance, this might be the click type for a button control. In the previous video, you created the custom Show Preview type for the Choose Custom component. I'm not going to use the other 2 arguments, so I'm just going to delete them. The constructor also calls the super method to initialize the functionality of the event class for this subclass. Again, I will delete the other 2 arguments. The last code I need to add to the constructor are the arguments that will accept the data that I want to pass in the event object. Let's take a look at the final output again. You can see that the Employee of the Month preview component displays the employee's image, name, email address, and phone number along with a congratulations message. This information comes from 2 places in the Choose Custom component. Remember that this drop-down list control is populated from the XML file which contains all the information about each employee in the list. Although you are displaying only the first name of the employee in the control, all of the employee data is actually stored in the model bound to the drop-down list control. You can access the data using the selected item property of the control. The congratulatory message comes from the text area control here. I want to create this custom event class to accept both of these values, so I'm going to create 2 class properties. Inside the class definition, but before the constructor, I'm creating a public variable named employee info. This property will contain all the information about an employee, first name, last name, email, phone number, etc. Therefore, I will data type it to the object class because it will contain many name value pairs of data. I am creating a second public variable named message that is a string. These properties will be passed to the class in the constructor, so I'm adding them to the constructor arguments after the type argument. Note that I'm naming the constructor arguments the same name as the class properties. This is not required, and some developers actually don't approve of this practice. I, however, do like to name them the same. I will show you how to distinguish between them in a moment. Within the constructor, but below the super method, I am populating the employee info class property with the corresponding constructor argument. However, because both of them are named the same, I must distinguish between them by adding the this dot keyword, which, as you learned in an earlier video, is a self-reference for the class instance. I am also populating the message class property with the corresponding constructor argument. The flash.events.event class, which our custom event is extending, has a method called clone that is used in event propagation. In the beginning of day 2, you learned that event propagation includes capturing, targeting, and bubbling phases. What the clone method does is duplicate an instance of the event subclass so that when the event is dispatched and bubbles up through the parent containers, it will automatically duplicate itself and pass along your custom data. You use the override keyword that you learned about in the OOP video at the end of day 1 to replace the functionality of the event class's clone method. You want to specifically create an instance of your own custom event with the appropriate custom data. In this example, the choose custom component is merely passing data up one level to the main application, and I'm handling the event right on the component itself, so I don't really need to use the clone method. I am not relying on event bubbling for this example. However, to ensure that this component is usable in that case, I'm going to go ahead and create the override function. Below the constructor, but still inside the class, I am typing the override keyword and then creating a public function named clone and data typing the return type to the event superclass. In the method's curly braces, I am typing the return keyword and then the new keyword to create an instance of the show preview custom event. Remember that the constructor for this event, defined right there, requires that I pass the type and then my two custom arguments for the data, employee info and message. I am saving the file, and now my extended event class is prepared for event propagation if I so choose to take advantage of it. Now that you have the custom class created that extends the event class, you can use it in your application. First, you will define this class in the metadata compiler directive, and then you will instantiate it using the new operator. Next, you will populate the new event object with the custom data that you want to pass, and then you will dispatch the event. The steps here are very similar to what you implemented in the last video, but now you will use the custom class and add some data to the event object. This is the choose.mxml custom component file that you modified in the last exercise. In the metadata compiler directive, you had created a custom event type named showPreview for the event class. I am updating the class reference to use the new custom event class that I just created, events.showPreview. Remember that events refers to the package, which is the events folder, and showPreview refers to the name of the class. I am leaving the type name set to showPreview. It has an initial lowercase s since this is the event type, not the class name. In the code you created previously, you handled the click on the preview button in this function by creating an event object that was dispatched to the main application using the dispatch event method. This code stays very similar, except now, rather than creating the event object variable as an instance of the event class, I'm creating it as an instance of the show preview class. I'm updating the class name in the constructor call as well. Note that since I did use code hinting, FlashBuilder imported the class for me. I have created the event object, but I haven't passed my custom data into it. The first argument in the show preview class is the event type, which is show preview, and which I defined in the metadata directive. Remember that the second argument in the constructor is the complex object data type that contains the employee information, and the last argument is the congratulations message. In the choose custom component, here's the drop-down list control. You can see that its instance name is employee list. The text area control for the congratulations message is named message. In the constructor call, I am referencing these two controls for the other two arguments. First, I will add employee list.selected item to grab all the data stored in the selected item of that drop-down list control, which displays the employee of the month that was chosen by the administrator. Next, I am adding the message.text reference to grab the message that the administrator typed into the text area control. I'm saving the file to maintain my changes. Back in the main application, in the last exercise, you handled the show preview event with this function. Currently, all the event handler does is turn on the preview custom component instance to make it visible. Let's take a look in the preview custom component file. You can see that this component expects two properties, employee info and message. The first property is a complex object with multiple name-value pairs of data that contain all the information about an employee. It is used to populate the image control and other text fields in the custom component. The second property simply contains the congratulations message for display. Let's take a moment to evaluate this event object that contains this new custom data. In the main application file, I am placing a breakpoint on the closing line of the show preview event handler function by double-clicking on the editor gutter. Now I'm clicking on the debug button in FlashBuilder to run the debugger. The application displays in the browser. I am selecting Annette as the employee of the month and writing a quick congratulations message. Remember that when I click on this preview button, I'm going to start a chain of code logic that dispatches my custom event object and ends with the main application turning the preview component visible and then hitting my breakpoint. When that happens, FlashBuilder switches me back to the debugger where I can double-click on the Variables tab to expand it to view my event object. You can see that this event object is an instance of the show preview event class. It also contains the two properties employee info and message, which hold the employee information for the selected employee, and the type message from the choose custom component. I am stopping the debugging session, and switching back to the Flash perspective. In the Show Preview event handler, I am updating the event argument to be an instance of the Show Preview class. You can see that because I deleted the colon and used code hinting, Flash Builder automatically imported the class. Now I have access to the data that is stored in my event object. I will populate the Preview Employee of the Month component with the two properties that it wants, Employee Info and Message. I'm explicitly passing these two properties the two values stored in the associated event object properties. It is important that you recognize that the main application is handling the transfer of data from the Choose custom component to the Preview custom component via this event handler. Doing this maintains loose coupling between the custom components, which allows them to be self-contained elements that do not have any hard-coded dependencies. When I save the file and run the application, you can see the Choose custom component. I'm selecting an employee from the drop-down list control and typing a congratulations message. When I click the Preview button, the data from this custom component is passed via the main application to the Preview custom component where it is displayed in the UI controls. For your next step, work through the exercise titled Extending the Event Class to Pass Data in the Event Object.